Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Mike Aubrey. I'm one of the technology evangelists on the Autodesk Fusion 360 team, and I'm going to share with you how I made this guy over my Christmas break. We get to work with so many great companies over the course of the year, and over Christmas we just shut down, and so I was able to log some good quality time with our CNC machine that we have here in the office, and I made this guy, which is a trophy to commemorate my favorite soccer team in the Pacific Northwest, the Portland Timbers. And they won the championship this year. And so what I got here is just the Timbers axe and the star for the championship and the year. And I was able to make this thing out of white maple and walnut, and I did it all in Fusion 360. And so what this video is it's going to show you how I was able to both do the design and the manufacturing part all within the same file. And hopefully there'll be some best practices in there, or maybe some tips and tricks you didn't know, and hopefully you can use those in your projects in the future. So enjoy the video. So the way I'm going to set this up is I'm going to do them as two videos. I'm going to do them, the first one how I model it, and then the second one how I then create the cam paths. So the first one will be about 20 minutes, the second one probably about 20 minutes as well. Let's jump into it. So when I started to make this trophy, I definitely didn't think this was going to be the final shape. It was actually a process moving through. I started actually wanting to do this. I wanted to get a big piece of firewood, like a big old stump, mill out that and put inserts inside it. And then there's some realities of it, just kind of sort of the way that when you're going on this sort of direction with the grains, and then firewood, how it dries over time would create some cracking. The guy at the wood shop talked me out of it. And then also I didn't know how thin I could go on the number pieces, but then also I knew I had to go smaller though, because there were some realities about the footprint of the CNC I was working with. There are a lot of sharp edges here that I wasn't accounting for what was the actual radius of the tool I'd be using to cut with. So I knew I'd needed to make a model that would allow me to get what I wanted, but also would be adaptable when I had to go and create it. So I'm going to show you, just kind of run you through how I set up this model to get this shape, but then also be adaptive as I had to change my mind and work with manufacturing realities. So I won't do it totally the way I actually did it in practice, because I think I've actually got better ways to do it now that I've done it once. But let's jump in, and I'm going to make this guy. So I'm going to start off just by making a new part here, and we'll start on just the back side here. And the first thing I do when I make models like this is I start setting up all the guiding parameters for what I want to create. And so I'm in creation mode right now, but I still know that I'm going to be make changes later. So I know I start with what I know, and that I wanted this stump. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it in one piece or multiple pieces, and so I create it just kind of with these dimensions here in the sketching environment. Basically, it's going to be about a foot. And let's kind of start with that. So I could go in back and later and partition if I need to, but this is my first kind of general size. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my canvas of what the axe is going to be. That's kind of that central piece that I need to play around with. And so I'm gonna bring that guy in. I don't know how big I want it to be yet. So I'm just going to kind of generally size it, and then maybe give some sort of quick sanity check of how big it is or small. I'm going to turn things like display through on as I start to create things. I can still see it. Kind of bump down the opacity so it's not in my face so much, and we'll kind of create around this. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to calibrate this. So I'm going to go into my canvas, calibrate it. Just by clicking here and here, I can get it roughly to this about the size I think it's going to be. So we'll just kind of roughly, maybe 7 inches ish. I mean, that's really big. I'm going to have to size this down, but that's okay. So we'll just leave it at that size for now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start, so then I'm going to start actually modeling it to get the proportions right. And so I know that's going to be a little big, but I'll go ahead and model to this, and I'll actually use the scale tool to make it smaller. My first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to register this guy as being my the actual trophy profile. So that's one sketch I'll be maintaining. The next sketch I'm going to maintain are my inserts. And so I'm actually going to make their own sketch for that. And so I'll just kind of start by creating this axe, and then we'll actually make the star, and I'll put the numbers in as well. So one of the things I'll do is I'll just kind of start by creating basically a central axis, and I'll mirror these guys on the other side so it's symmetric. So with the arc here, I'll just start making these arches, and so I'll just kind of pick kind of there to there. It doesn't have to be exact here. I can go and change these things up in a little bit. Go U to U. Actually, let's make sure that they connect though. So make sure these guys are there. And we'll say go. And this guy actually kind of straightens out. So I'm going to take this guy, go there, and then this guy, go to there. I like that. And then we'll say here, and that looks pretty good. And now to make sure that this guy actually lines up, I'm going to make these little lining up these lines to actually make some tangencies to make it so everything nicely rounds off, so I don't have these hard edges. So I'll just kind of add these extra lines here, and we're going to make them all construction lines, so they aren't actually going to be part of a profile later. And so now I'm going to go and use my tangency constraint, and so you'll see we'll make this guy so it's tangent, so there won't be, so it'll be a nice continuous movement in this axe. That's looking good. Pull this guy in, and we'll go and we'll do the same thing now to this guy. Oh, there we go. Take this guy and you. Love that. This guy needs to be vertical, so this guy is actually going to be, use this horizontal constraint to make it so this guy's always up and down. Let's see if those constraints behave a little better. Yep. Love that. And then the final one. Okay, so that's looking really nice. Actually, that guy models really fast, and that's looking pretty good. So now what we'll do is we'll mirror it. We can do the mirror at the feature level is a best practice if you think you're going to be dealing with specific parameters and making a lot of edits and whatnot. My only edits I'm really going to be doing to this guy is actually the scale. So for me, I think it actually makes more sense to do the mirror at the sketch level. So I'm going to do this guy and then just mirror it about that center point there. And then so I have one profile to work with. I'm actually going to turn around and make this guy a construction line. And you can see now how I can just kind of choose these different profiles. I think I'm going to keep these guys as one big cutout block, but it's nice to have the flexibility. If I wanted to do two pieces, I could. I like that. And I'm going to go ahead and stop my sketch. So for now, I'm going to keep them as one, and we're going to extrude them out. And for this, how high do we go? I can make a choice for this. But it might change, and actually the height of that insert is going to be a function actually of the stock wood piece that I purchase. So I'm actually going to ahead of time go into my parameters and set one up so I can be more flexible later on. So I'm actually going to call this insert height. Actually, maybe we'll just call it insert H, depending if you can remember this stuff. So we'll call it insert H, and then it's going to be, we're in America, right? So it'll be something like 3/4 of an inch, maybe a 1/2 inch. I'm not sure. I'll say 1/2 inch. And then that will be actually what I then go and extrude. So I'll just take this guy and extrude, pull it up, and then just type it in. So we'll call this guy the insert H. And that height will be super handy because we can keep that now for all the other different pieces as well. And if we need to change it, it's going to be one place where we change it. So I got the trophy done. So now this is going to be my insert profiles. Good best practice to name these, because then you know what you're doing later. If someone else has to edit it too, they know what they're looking at. So let's go and actually make this guy a little bit further out. I'm not sure I like that. Let's make it so these guys, actually the more I'm looking at this, I would like you and you to be aligned and you actually to be a little bigger. Yeah, like that. That's better. Okay, so now we need to make a star. So I'm going to draw this out the same way I drew it out when I was a kid. You just kind of go here, here. Well, what I didn't have when I was a kid was the ability to deal with proportions. And to do stuff with proportions is really awesome. We can just quickly use this break tool to basically segment the lines. So now they're all their own discrete lines. And now check out what we're able to do here. So I'm going to say I want these guys to, okay, they're always going to stay vertical. I'm going to use this collinear tool to make sure that these guys stay the same line. So we'll say repeat the collinear. You and you. Okay, and now we're going to just have a great time making everything equal. You and you. And then you and you. Yep. And then you and you. And last but not least, I want you and you, then you. And then we'll do equals. You guys are equal. You guys are equal. Then you guys are equal. And then you guys are equal. Oh man, this is crazy talk. Oh, look at all those happy equal stars. It just looks amazing. Okay, again, I don't really know how big I want this star to be, but I know that that's a start. So we just want it to be kind of symmetric about there, and that's looking pretty good. If I wanted to dimension it, I could, but I'm actually the only real dimension that I really care much about for this star is actually, you know what, one more thing to do here. Let's best practice this. Let's make these guys in the middle here. Let's make those construction lines so we only have one profile to deal with. All right, we'll take this guy, throw him up, and again we're going to use that insert. Insert H. We got one variable. Love it. Okay. The next thing we got to do is we need to choose our the numbering. So one of the things I'm concerned about that 2015 is that it's just not going to be enough space. Like with that's too many characters. So I'm going to actually compromise and just go apostrophe 15. So let's go back into this guy and we'll just type that out. So we'll just go and take the text, kind of throw it down here. I'm not sure how large or small it has to be yet, but so there's 15. Throw this guy around, and I'll just kind of pick a generic font. Adobe Agency. Oh, Agency looks pretty reasonable. Okay. All right. All right. We like that value, so we'll go in there and we're gonna need to center that up. There we go, and that looks about right. And now we've got to make this thing so it'll fit in that trophy stump. So I guess the next thing we need to do is we actually need to make the stump that it's going to fit in. So this is going to be actually a different stock. So I'm going to go in, and again, we're going to want to change this stuff later. So I'll actually call this thing the trophy height. Inches. We'll just call it the same with 75 for now. I don't know, half inch, something like that. So we'll take this guy, we'll extrude him. Say we'll just actually push this down because we're not sure quite yet what it's going to be. We're going to say this is going to be okay, negative trophy H. Okay, new body, so it doesn't join up with the other ones. And let's make sure that we're labeling these things along the way so that we know what we're working with. So this is the axe, star, 1, the loneliest number, 5, apostrophe, and we'll call this the trophy, or the stump or something like that. Okay, and we'll go and we'll turn off this canvas for now. We're not going to need that. Okay, and then we need to get these guys so that the right kind of general size to fit. One of the things before that is we got to make it so that this thing is going to be manufacturable. And so I know that my CNC only has I have 6 millimeter diameter tools. I have 3 millimeter diameter tools. I want to make sure that the ones that I can actually go that are making everything to basically be as flexible as possible. Let's hold the I can only go so deep with the 3 millimeters. So actually, let's make it so everything is only doing a radius of maybe 3 millimeters, or a radius of 3 millimeters to work with the 6 millimeter diameter tool. And so one of the ways we can do is we can hit the F key, start your fillet, and then this is kind of a slick trick. If you just do this, go across, just choose all of the edges on these inside edges here that it's going to have to maintain, these sharp edges on the outer, go around these. It's these inner ones that you need to worry about the radius for. And then also, as depending on the type of font you chose, you might have a bunch of just extra crappy edges and stuff here on your SVG. So this fillet can help you kind of heal some of those edges and really kind of maintain radiuses that are actually machinable. So this guy will just kind of call us out and see, can it hold a 3? And they can. Okay, so we've got 3 on all these guys, which is super handy. But where it gets kind of fussy is that this is going to be too big for for the footprint that I want to deal with anyway. So I'm going to have to scale all these guys, and I'm probably going to want to scale them individually. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do it before I do my radius, because that radius is going to remain absolute. But let's start scaling these things down and see if they can maintain it. So the scale tool is amazing. So this is like where I know that I have a specific height I want to maintain, but I need to actually size down the other proportions. So I can go and just kind of just start choosing these entities, and we'll just kind of scale this guy. The point will actually be, in this case, the origin that I'm scaling about. And check this out. I can kind of do a non-form uniform scale, and we'll like kind of size this thing down to like maybe 0.6 of what it was on the X and the Y, but we'll keep that Z the same so the height stays the same, and we'll give a little bit of room for the stars to come in. So we'll say maybe this will be 0.6. I think these guys need to be their own. I'm actually going to give them their own center point to scale around too. So let's give these guys like maybe something like, yeah, that looks like a good spot. Kind of just make a little line for a little point for these guys to scale from. So I'm going to go and scale, go get modify scale. I'll choose you, you, and you, and then we'll scale about this point right there. and then again non-uniform. So we'll bump this thing down to 0.6 again. You get something roughly, yeah, I'm not sure, something like that. And where it gets fun is after we go and we take these guys and kind of move them into place. Say it's going to be kind of roughly about there. Um, have we gone too small? Let's go and actually go back in our timeline here and turn back on that fillet and see if it maintains and say, yeah, it does. So they didn't fail. It's looking like it's cutting off some of that one a little bit, so maybe we went a little small on it. But this, I picked a good font, a pretty flexible font. That apostrophe is looking more like a dot. So maybe we go back and actually change this. Let's bump this up a little bit. So yeah, that's looking a little better. We can probably even go a little bigger. Go big or go home, huh? Go make this thing like, actually let's go 0.9, see how this thing is. Okay. And then, well, yeah, but still that, maybe we want to make this thing, that's looking a little fat. So actually let's size this thing down a little bit. Maybe the X will be 8. Actually, no, actually it's the other way. It's a Z, actually. Let's make this thing like 6. Nope. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So that's looking good. So now let's size down that star a little bit. That star is looking a little big, and we can move things around too here. So we'll go and we'll do a little scaling operation here for this guy. That's probably a good enough spot to scale it from. Although ideally you want it actually to be scaled from the bottom point. So actually, let's give a point. Let's actually let's get something in the center here. Actually, the more I think about it, let's give you your own scale point too. There we go. Something like that. Scale U from here. Non-uniform 0.6, 0.6. It looks about right. And let's see, actually, let's do that actually before the fillet and even before the move. And that guy is able to hold the fillet as well. Loving it. Okay, and let's just start moving some of these guys. So that trophy needs to, so the axe needs to come up a little bit. The star needs to come down a little bit. So that's just kind of a proportions game. We can kind of go and play around with these different sizes and stuff. But I guess for just demonstration purposes, this is looking pretty good. Now at this point, as I was playing around with stuff and looking back at my CNC, I noticed that actually that I could fit things. I could go long on this and fit in there, but actually I was limited. Actually, I really can't go. I can't go wide. It just as the table moves back and forth, it doesn't work. So I can't actually maintain this circle unless I want to do different inserts. And so time constraints, this is the point when I kind of reached that point that I wanted to go more the surfboard shape. So the way you adapt around these things, if I ever wanted to go back or if I wanted to make slots or if I wanted to do other things, it's no big deal. Just go back and change the profile. So here we'll just go back and change this guy so that I have just a really, kind of what is the, how what is the profile that I have to maintain, I guess. So I can go in and actually make this something that's in line with what I want to machine. Now, how thin do I have to go here? So I can go and actually kind of set this guy up for the minimum thicknesses for my actual machine bed. So one of the things I'll set it out to is it's all in millimeters because it's German, God bless it. This guy, the width actually is only 140 millimeters. So we got to do that, and then we got to center it, right? So it's center about this guy. So we'll kind of create this guy. It'll be this guy divided by 2. Let's go back to our extrusion. This guy, so it doesn't include these guys anymore. No big deal. So I'm just hitting the control key and I'm unselecting them. And then we're sizing these guys all back down. So that's looking pretty good, like it fits. Okay. Gonna add just a little chamfer. Actually, no, just to you. No tangent chain, just you and you. Let's cut this axe, something like that. So actually, let's do like 0.1 inches because actually it's a 1/4 inch chamfer I have. So we'll take you, and actually, let's do them all as one because this will come in handy when we're going to actually machine these guys. There we go. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, I like that. And then we'll actually, we'll do the same thing. Actually, let's add these guys too. So I think that'll just look nice. Yeah. So kind of you add your chamfers at the end, right? Because it produces a more flexible model. So let's start creating the actual inserts here and deciding kind of how far down we want these inserts to go. What I'll do is I'll just kind of do another kind of separate move operation for them. We'll do them all at once, and we want them to kind of keep a unified level. I don't think I want anything to be more raised than the other, and so I think we'll go down 10 millimeters, halfway down. That sounds, I think that seems doable. Um, yeah, something like that. If I'm using the 6 millimeter tool, I think I can make that happen. So I'm going to pick that for now and say yes. And now I've got this overlap between the different bodies, and this is where we can use just an amazing tool. It's called Combine, to make it so I can make the space for where the inserts go without having to remodel anything. It's incredible. So look at how it works. So I just give it a target body, and then I just give it my tool bodies. So I say you, and you, and then I say cut, and then keep the tools because I don't want to delete these things when I'm done. And look at what it does. I just go and I turn off all these parts, and now I've got now I've got these insert spaces, and actually, as I'm looking, I think I forgot to select the one. Um, where's my one? Sorry, he is lonely. Um, yeah, well, there we go. So the next thing we need to do is make it so that the insert's gonna fit well. Like I want it to be a press fit, but I've found actually in my last project is that I just these types of tiny things as I'm trying to pound them in, I break them if there's not. It needs to be like a slip fit. It shouldn't be a force fit in this thing. So I need a little bit of an offset, and there's a great way to do that with press pull. Let me show you kind of what the click order is to make that happen. So if you go into your selection options and just kind of if you turn everything's turned on, if you just turn it off and just go by body faces, check this out. If I go and just kind of turn off the visibility, I'm going to basically add a tolerance to all of these inner faces. I'm going to say, hey, just go out for a millimeter just to show it, and then we'll change it to a half millimeter because it's actually what I want. And what we can do is if you just kind of just go to the side and make sure you got select through turned on, is if you just go and just window all of them and then use your control command to unselect the fillet face and then these bottom faces that you would choose, we can create what's called a selection set. So we'll just go and we'll say create a selection set. So we'll just call those our offset faces. Or actually, we'll call it tolerance if we really want to. But anyway, you get the point. It's a tolerance. And now I can go and actually using press pull. If you can just choose an individual, one face, press pull is really handy because you can go and push things in or out a little bit. But actually, what we want is press pull will either modify an existing feature if it was based off an extrusion, or it'll create its own new offset. And that's what we actually want here. I want to make a new offset. And I'm going to go and do it by actually going over to my selection sets and just selecting that saved set of faces. And this is awesome because then I can go and just say I'd like you to go out an extra millimeter. So it'll adjust some things. It's going to tell us that. And so now this thing is offset an extra millimeter. And take a look at what it does. So if I go and turn these things back on, we'll go to a view so we can see it. You can see now there's that extra tolerance we have. And actually, let's go and we'll change it here at the parameters level. If I go and change this guy out, actually, let me deselect this thing so it's not in our face. We'll go and change that parameter. Just go and find it under our save here. Go down to our offset faces. Go and turn this guy on. We'll actually call this our tolerance. I can actually rename this to tolerance. And let's change this thing back down to maybe, so I guess so we can see it. We'll zoom in. We'll bump this thing back down to maybe half a millimeter. And you can see that guy, that'll get smaller. Pretty cool, huh? So now this guy will be smooth, it'll fit right in. And then also we'll go ahead and we'll add just to make it look sharp, I think I'm going to go ahead and add a chamfer to these edges as well. just to kind of make it, just supposed to make it so it's it just looks nicer when we machine it, and then also it'll be easier to insert just by adding these guys. Maybe we'll just call this like a 0.1 inch or something. Can we go 0.1? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we've got this guy. Let's make it look pretty. So before we commit to making it and stuff, we can I've already done some renderings along the way with my last model, but this would be about the time I'd be like, yeah, let's see what this thing looks like. Go to your appearances, this space, and so we have a lot of great ways to do. In this case, because I'm doing wood, this solid wood was something we added a couple months ago before Christmas. If you haven't tried this stuff yet, it's exceptional. So try so in my case, I was dealing with some of the unfinished stuff. So like I really think this. The 3D maple, which is actually playing out. This is actually a white, white maple on here. So I'll go and apply this guy, push this up, and then actually what I bought at the store was also I did some stuff in walnut. So I have walnut, so this semi-stained dark gloss. So let's actually go. I can do them one at a time. Actually, I think it's really handy just to kind of click and drag this over top. You can just reapply them. And then what makes this so incredible is that we can make this solid wood is based on it pays attention to where the grain boundaries of these things are. So like if we go and look at where this guy is based, you can actually see it when the chamfer is gone. It continues that through, and so we can make choices kind of where we want the wood to be, how we want it to look. And so if we're going to articulate to somebody else who's doing the work, hey, no, I want it to look like this. Like this, for instance, the guy at the wood shop would probably have some words with me. This is really easy to change. I can go in actually for this case right here. If I right click and use texture map controls in this scenario, it's really easy to go and just change where I want that wood to kind of originate from. If you need to make other changes to this to the shape of your of the wood or the appearance of it, under your appearance settings, if you just double click on that, you get all sorts of different choices, like kind of the thickness. So if we want to make the ring thickness bigger or smaller, that's where you would go to change that. So mine's that looks about right. You can do things with a bumpness. You can even do crazy things, change the staining or the wood appearance. So mine's actually a little. Actually, I don't like that. I'm going to go back, undo. Yeah, so we'll just leave it the way it is, and that looks pretty good. So yeah, so play around with that stuff. It's so cool. And then so we'll take this, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my view to the front so that the lighting is correct. So we'll go and we'll bump this thing up. I'll go take it, just do the position, rotate it so that the lights go in the right direction. Maybe we'll bump up the light a little bit. Make it so it's got a background maybe that's something like Go Timbers, maybe something like this, like a green like that. Yeah, I think actually they're a little more forest green. There we go. Bump up the perspective. Okay, so let's do the focal length. Maybe make this a little more dramatic. There we go. So let's make this thing. So rather than having my own machine do the render, I can take advantage of cloud rendering. This is nice because I can just go and have a different a different server do all the heavy lifting and stuff, and then I'm free to do my own work on my own machine. So if you guys haven't tried the cloud rendering stuff yet, give it a try. It's pretty awesome. So we're just gonna go ahead and set this thing up. Just kind of it started, and then yeah, we're gonna go back and go about our work. So we'll come back to that. One of the most exciting things for me in this project was being able to create just an awesome rendering even before I bought the wood. Take a look at what I made and then compare it to the rendering. They're pretty close.